the world population has reached 8 billion, with estimates suggesting that this figure will rise to 10 billion by 2057. But these numbers hide a complex reality that is going unnoticed by many, while others are already suffering the consequences. And the rapid aging of the population could go from becoming an existential crisis experienced by many countries today to becoming an existential crisis for humanity. In a transformation that will forever change society, the economy, and life as we know it. The economy of a country is largely determined by how the age distribution of its population is structured. But this is a topic that you generally won't find in economics books. Because throughout history, the population has always been relatively stable and maintained a pyramid-shaped structure. However, this structure has undergone a transformation, or to put it more accurately, it experienced a drastic change several decades ago, and now the consequences have become too evident to be ignored. And this change has its origins in industrialization, urbanization, and advances in medicine. These factors have led to an increase in life expectancy and a reduction in the number of children people decide to have, compared to when they lived in rural areas. But why does it matter? Let's take a closer look at the role played by different age groups in an economy. While it may sound like an oversimplification, people, depending on their age, often share enough similarities to divide the population into 4 groups. The first group consists of individuals under the age of 20. This group does not contribute to production or investment, and their consumption is dependent on their parents. However, a country with a large population in this age group does not have to worry about its demographics in a while. The second group is composed of individuals between the ages of 20 and 45. This group contributes the majority of consumption because it is the age range in which people buy houses, cars, and have children. They are also economically active, contributing to production and a small portion of investment in society. The third group consists of individuals aged 45 to 65. This group possesses the experience that allows them to have higher incomes in their careers. They also experienced a reduction in expenses as their children move out and they finish paying for their houses and other debts. This enables them to invest and begin accumulating capital. The fourth group comprises individuals over the age of 65. These individuals have low consumption, do not contribute to production, and draw upon accumulated capital from previous years, generating a negative effect on investment. Each of these groups plays a role, and a population with a pyramid-shaped structure will not have imbalances and will be sustainable, at least from a demographic standpoint. Such a population will have a large number of children at the base, ensuring production and consumption in the future. It will have an adequate number of young adults who will produce and consume. There will be enough adults to provide capital and investment, and a small portion of retirees that can be supported by society without their negative impact on investment affecting its normal development. However, the changes that accelerated after World War II have caused this structure to evolve. It started with a reduction in the number of children and an increase in the older population due to longer life expectancies. When a society stops having children, it becomes more prosperous, and it's not difficult to understand why. People have few or no children, so they focus on their work, have fewer expenses, and invest more. This leads to sufficient consumption, investment, and increased productivity. But obviously, this is not sustainable because as people grow older, the transition goes from having no children to having a lack of young adults. Therefore, there are not enough people to absorb production, and eventually, the number of people in working age starts to decline, with the majority of the population nearing retirement age. Some parts of the world are still far from this situation, such as Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, and parts of Asia and Oceania. Other places are running out of children, some are lacking young adults, and in the worst cases, there are not enough working-age adults, with the two solutions generally employed having mixed results at best. The first and obvious solution is to try to increase the birth rate. This is a measure that has been primarily implemented through public policies. These policies aim to reduce the cost of having children through economic incentives, thereby encouraging people to have more children. This measure has had positive results in some countries where it has been implemented in a timely manner, such as France. However, in other countries like Japan, the results have not been as successful. Moreover, it has only led to temporary increases in the birth rate because the number of adults benefiting from these incentives is not sufficient to change the overall trend. The second solution is to promote migration to the country. This has been a useful measure for many developed countries to attract young adults for work, but it is not so straightforward. Adapting to different countries varies, and language and culture make it difficult for migrants to fully integrate into many countries, making this a temporary solution, but not structural for countries like Canada, and with limited results for European and Asian countries. Nonetheless, it has been beneficial for other countries and has helped mitigate the severity of the crisis they face. Countries like the United States and New Zealand have a chimney-shaped structure, where the population is evenly distributed across different age groups. This structure allows them to maintain relative stability, with enough children for the future and enough workers, consumers, production, and capital. And despite the decline in birth rates in these countries, they have fertile land that has allowed them to preserve a significant portion of their rural population, which tends to have more children. They also benefit from migration, which tends to adapt and be better absorbed in these countries, which are built on migration. However, these countries are not free from problems. Their largest generation, the baby boomers, who were born between 1946 and 1964, are nearing retirement. And the smaller Generation X will not be able to fill all the job positions they leave behind. Additionally, millennials do not have the same level of experience. Furthermore, as part of their retirement, baby boomers are transitioning from risky assets such as stocks and long-term bonds to cash and short-term bonds. This could lead to a contraction in the available capital for investment, and the stock market may not deliver the best results in the coming years. If you want to improve your chances, your best option is to learn, so don't forget to subscribe. This situation will be temporary for countries with this structure, assuming millennials have children. But it will not be the same for others. Like countries where the retirement of the boomers implies the withdrawal of the majority of the workforce. And what served these countries well, as people focused on studying, becoming more productive, and investing more money, is now coming back to haunt them. The European demographic crisis is not exactly an unknown problem. But it is important to understand that the continent is not homogeneous, and not all countries within it face the same situation. However, they can be broadly grouped into four main categories. The first group includes the Scandinavian countries and France. These countries have taken measures to encourage people to have children and have been relatively successful. They also have more space, which has put them in a better position compared to the rest of the continent. The second group includes Iberia and countries in Central Europe. Industrialization developed a bit later in these countries. They are aging rapidly but still have a sufficient working age population. And although they have limited room for increasing the birth rate, they are in a better position than the next group. The third group includes Germany, Italy, Austria, and other neighboring countries. These countries are not running out of children and young people, rather, they are facing a shortage of working-age adults. In the coming years, the German industry will witness the retirement of the baby boomers. And there won't be enough people in the subsequent generations to replace them. This has led the German government to seek the arrival of migrants to sustain the country's industry. The fourth group consists of Eastern European countries, including Russia, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, and Belarus. These countries have faced various difficulties in the past century. From famines and wars to the collapse of the Soviet Union and the subsequent economic crisis. This has caused the destruction of the population pyramid, which has been further amplified by high migration. In these countries, the population is not expected to decline, rather, it has been declining for decades. For example, Russia reached its peak population in 1993, and the war has worsened the situation through deaths and migration. leaving these countries in the worst position in terms of demography. Well, almost. And finally, the place where the crisis is most severe in terms of its economic impact on the world: Asia. Specifically, Northeast Asia, and more specifically, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and China. Let's start with Japan. This country has become the representation of what the rest of the world could expect. But it is perhaps the country that has prepared the best for this situation, outsourcing its industry to other countries, automating everything that can be automated, and implementing policies to increase birth rates, although without sufficient success. South Korea. This country has undergone rapid industrialization and has limited space. This means that, like Japan, it has one of the oldest populations in the world, and they have few chances of reversing this trend. Taiwan. Although its population is aging rapidly, it still has a workforce for a couple of decades, and it has a little more room to maneuver compared to its neighbors. And finally, China. The demographic problem facing this country is extremely complex and has a significant impact on the world. That's why we have created a comprehensive video on this topic, which I highly recommend you watch next.